Step is to pitch the tent to check that everything is working as it should. You are going to pitch the tent even if it is wet. When you are setting up the poles, please be careful. The poles are very heavily tensioned and they are quite long. If they pop out of the grommet and catch you unawares, they can strike you or any nearby object. So please make sure that you have both hands on the poles at all times and are moving slowly to avoid any surprises. Now, different models pitch differently. You'll want to look up online to find the right method for your model. But here are a general set of guidelines for a basic cross-pitch setup with 2 poles. First, you are going to lay down the footprint. Now remember, sometimes a tent may come with a tarp instead of a footprint. If a tent comes with a tarp, which is a very plasticky feeling, very shiny piece of fabric, then you can skip this step, since tarps are universal and do not fit to a particular tent. Otherwise, identify the footprint easily because it is the smallest piece of fabric. It has no zippers, no mesh, and is usually a basic, solid, rectangular shape. Go ahead and lay that down on the ground. Next, you're going to lay the body down on top. You can identify the body because this is the piece of fabric with mesh. Once you start to spread it out, you'll notice that the body is basically like a 2-layer piece of fabric, because between the 2 layers is the body where the people are. One layer has colors, designs, and mesh on it, while the other layer is a dull, solid piece of fabric. You're going to lay the body down over the footprint such that the dull piece of fabric is touching the footprint, and the other side with the colors, the design, and the mesh is facing up toward you. Now, you're going to set up the poles. The pole segments are joined by a flexible shock cord, and honestly, it wants to be set up. You'll note that the pole segments snap into place very easily and very logically. So go ahead and set up all the unique poles that you have. The next step is you need to figure out where the poles should go. You're going to look for any sleeves, as this is where poles should slide through, and look for any hooks or clips, as this is where poles attach to. Tent designers also sometimes use color coding to help provide guidance. Just by taking a moment to look, you'll start to see a pattern emerge. For example, in this basic cross pitch, you'll notice that the hooks go from one corner of the tent to the opposite corner, diagonally. Therefore, the tent poles are going to cross diagonally, and that is why this is a common cross-pitch tent. Now you're going to pitch the body. Each corner of the tent body, there is a metal circle with a hole in it. This is called a grommet, and the piece of fabric that it's on, the combined name is a grommet tab. Note that at each end of the pole, there is a nub. So how it works is that the nub at the end of the pole fits into the grommet, and then the hooks or clips on the tent body hook onto the pole, and if you do see any sleeves on the tent body, the pole should slide into them. The best way to do this is to pick a side to start from. In the side that you're starting from, you're going to put the nub of one pole end into the grommet, and then move to the other grommet on that same side and do the same thing. At this point, you're going to move to the other side and put the 2 pole ends on this side into the respective grommet tabs as well. This step needs to be done very carefully because otherwise the built-up tension in the pole may cause it to spring out of the grommet. For me, my best trick is to step on the grommet tab I'm currently trying to attach a pole to keep it still. So you'll also need to carefully hold the other pole while you are doing the first pole and vice versa. That way you slowly see the structure begin to take form. Both poles are in the respective grommet tabs. You still have to keep a hand on the poles to keep them from popping out. At this point, there's usually a center clip at the very center of the X where the two poles meet. Go ahead and clip this clip to give yourself a little bit of stability. And then, being mindful that one hand is holding on to both poles, clip up the other two poles until everything is clipped. If at this point you still have an extra pole, take another moment to study the tent body. Remember that a final pitched tent should have all the fabric be tight and taut. Study where there might be opportunity to stretch out the fabric more, and look for other grommet tabs or pockets to slide the pole into. In this case, across the cross pitches, like so. Sometimes, still you may have leftover poles that are used to provide additional support for the rainfly once the rainfly is pitched, and particularly if the rainfly has a vestibule. These are usually more common in the largest tent models. Once the body is pitched, you want to attach the footprint. The footprint should have a surface area smaller than the tent floor, but the grommet tabs should be long enough to reach to the ends of the tent pole, and so you can clip these in as well. Pro tip: if you undo the tent body grommet and pole connection for a second, you can slide the footprint grommet tab above the tent body grommet tab, and that sandwich effect is going to help keep everything together. The last thing to pitching a tent is to pull the rainfly over. On the rainfly, you're going to find the logo. There's always a logo. This logo needs to be readable to passerbys because of marketing, and so that is how you know which side of the rainfly should face up and out. Once you have the side correct, drag the rainfly over the body. You're going to orient it by finding the corner grommet tabs on the rainfly, sometimes you'll find buckle clips, and aligning them with the corner grommet tabs on the tent body. You'll check that the orientation is correct by verifying that any zippers on the tent body that represent doors are lining up with zippers on the rainfly that are also representing doors. Once again, designers may use color coding, so taking a second to study the fly can help you figure it out. Once this rainfly is positioned appropriately, go ahead and lock it in place with the poles and the grommets. In the process of pitching this tent, we've also checked a ton of small things. For example, the tent wouldn't be pitchable if the poles were severely damaged or if the grommets were snapped or missing. You can either move on to the next step if the tent is fully dry, or you can see the next step, part B of step 2, for more information on how to tell if a tent is dry.